Hello and welcome to the PC Security channel. Today I'll be reviewing Comodo's brand new version, that is version 8 Internet Security. So let's jump right into the product. Now there's been a lot of interesting thoughts about this product in different websites and forums. Now the biggest difference between this and the previous version is not the change in skin. If you guys don't know, the skin was already there. You just had to go and change it. But I guess now they've made it default. Some people like this interface because it's a little bit more flatter. Honestly, I don't really see that much of a difference. I do slightly prefer it, but that's not the biggest change in this version. However, the biggest change in this version is that we finally have an absolutely automated sandbox. Now, previously, we had some categories, like you could either make the sandbox highly restrictive for all files, or you could make it partially limited for all files, and basically like any setting that you applied was applied throughout the system. So there was no way for the sandbox to choose which file to isolate and which file not to isolate. In fact, if any file was unrecognized, it would just be treated as everything else. There was just one category that you would set, and everything would be limited based on that. But now we've got something that is entirely different. So now they've got different categories based on which, like, if an application, we can read some of these rules to know more. Like, let's say an application has come from the internet, or from a network drive, or from a removable drive. Then it's going to be run virtually. Similarly, if okay, let's check out this rule. If an application comes from a web browser, email client, file downloader, pseudo file downloader, which is also very important because this is the kind of stuff that downloads adware, it is all going to be run virtually. Now, this is great, but at the same time, this does have a security flaw. It reduces the number of alerts, making Comodo a much more user-friendly solution, but at the same time, there's a slight compromise in security. And that is, let's say you have an application on your system that is malicious, and you didn't have Comodo when you got it, or you got it when Comodo was disabled. In that case, Comodo is not going to restrict the application because of the auto sandboxing rules. So what they've done is kind of like running every application as if in clean PC mode. If you guys remember, the previous version of Comodo had a mode called clean PC mode, in which it would not, scan or detect items that are on your PC already. It would only scan new items. And that's kind of what they've done with this version. This version is basically clean PC mode, optimized to run on every system, to run in different situations, and to block every kind of malware. So it's just an improvement of clean PC mode in previous Comodo versions. Now there have been improvements to virus scope as well. So now you can monitor applications outside the sandbox, and you've got a bit more control. But that's basically the biggest difference. The biggest difference for me and for everyone is going to be the new Defense Plus sandbox. And how this thing exactly works, some people say it's very vulnerable. Now, a lot of applications can bypass this, which was not the case in the previous version of Comodo. Some people say it works great, so I'll just try it out for myself, and we'll see how it works. So I've got plenty of malware samples today. I'm not going to go through all of the settings again because there's nothing really big to talk about there. There may be a couple of things here and there, but I'll just skip them because I don't want it to be too long and too boring. So we'll get straight to our test. Don't forget that Comodo is one of the products that did really well in the previous version, so we'd expect a good result. So here we go. I've got 8 malware links. These are all going to be from the internet, so it's basically going to be just like the previous version of Comodo in this test. That's what I'm guessing, because in stock settings there's not a big difference. So this is our first file. Let's see if Comodo can stop it, and there we go, signature detection. So that's very straightforward, nothing too special about that. Here's the second file. And once again, Comodo signatures at work. That's something that I'm really interested to see as well, how Comodo is doing in terms of signatures. Last time it wasn't that great. People say they're improving, and I'd definitely like to find out. So this application has been run virtually because it has been downloaded from the internet. So what's going to happen now is it's going to run completely virtualized, and it's not going to be able to do any damage to the system. Anything that it does do will be just temporary and will be solved by just clearing out the sandbox, unless there's a vulnerability. Otherwise, that's just the way it works. So here's a zip file. Now this will be interesting if Comodo classifies this as from the internet and blocks it. Well, it's just caught by the signature, so no chance for that. So it got rid of that one fairly easily. Here's another double extension file. In fact, it's a single extension. The file name itself is what people call an extension, but this is not an extension. So here's another file that has been isolated. Now, once again, from what I can see, Comodo signatures haven't really caught up that much, because that file, in my opinion, should have been just blocked. Okay, so here's another process that was run virtually. You can see the properties of the file. If we click on it, that's neat. I like that. So more and more applications, everything it runs, the parent application, every sub-application that they try to run is going to be run virtually. Now here's the Windows firewall alert, so I'll just allow access for the moment because, we're testing Comodo and not Windows. Let's see if anything interesting happens inside the sandbox. Okay, once again, as you can see, this application crashes because it's run inside the sandbox and it can't do what it's supposed to do, so it just crashes. That's nice. I'm seeing a lot of these Google Drive, files nowadays. They go down really early, but while they're there, they're a big threat, because people usually trust these links because Google usually scans everything that you upload. Here's a control panel item, and it's been blocked. Most of these are usually control panel items because Google probably scans all the executables, so people have figured out a new way to try and get malware on the internet, making control panel items. That's neat. So here's the last one. Okay, it looks like it was probably caught or moved. Something happened to it. Just go ahead and try it one more time. And it's caught by Comodo, so signatures did the job there. So now what I'm going to do is I'll just check their sandbox. Now, as you can see, there are plenty of blocked intrusions. Not sure what these are. Let's take a closer look at the application. So, as you can see, this is the application that was running in the sandbox, and a lot of things that it tried to do were blocked because it was running virtually. Now, we have 9 apps still running in the sandbox, but we can just go ahead and terminate all of this. It wouldn't really be a big deal. But I'm not going to do that, since that's not what a regular user is going to do, most of the time, I guess, at least. So I'll just reboot the system, which should pretty much... Okay, I'm not going to install kill switch now. So I'll just reboot the system, which should get rid of these processes in the sandbox, and then we'll do a scan, and we'll see if anything went through Comodo Shields. It shouldn't have, because everything got isolated and all of these applications were from the web. So Comodo should be a pretty solid defense from these files. We'll just check the results once I reboot the system. Welcome back. Here is the file that was running before, and it's caught by Hetman Pro as suspicious. Now let's go ahead and try to run this file from its parent directory. And see if it manages to get through now. well, I'm not seeing any kind of weird behavior over here that you might suspect, so I'm assuming it's not going to work. So let's see what happens to this process when I try to execute it. So here we go. Here it is, taking a ton of CPU, and then it just terminates because there's nothing it can do now. So this is kind of hit and miss, but I'll give Comodo a clean sheet over here because there are no real infections on the system. No damage has been done. Yes, a trace is there, but I mean, really, what does this do to threaten the user or to say that Comodo has been bypassed? There's basically nothing. So I'll give Comodo a clean sheet over here, but now is the interesting part where we actually get to test the signatures in depth and also the zero-day capabilities. So what I'm going to do is I'll disable Comodo, then we can just go ahead and grab our malware samples. I have 500 of these, and it should be a good test considering these are like fairly new samples. I just grabbed them today morning, and well, there's 500 of them. So I'll just go ahead and do a right click scan with Comodo, but just before that I'll show you guys once again that it's up to date. It should be, and it is. So now let's go ahead and do a scan, and we'll see two things. What's the detection ratio and how fast the scan is, because Comodo scans used to be fairly fast. Then from the last couple of versions, I guess, it hasn't been that great. The scan speed of Comodo has varied version to version. In some it's really fast, in some it's fairly slow. And in this version it looks like it's fairly slow. So you're taking more time, you should detect more items, it should be a more in-depth scan. Now that's what I would expect if the scan is slower. Now if it's slow and the detection rate still sucks, well, there's not much of explanation for that. So anyway, I'll just pause the video and I'll be back when the scan is complete. Well, the scan took a little bit longer than it does usually, and the cleaning process was pretty much the same. So what are we left with? 191 items. So that's not a great detection rate. If we take a look at it, it's just 61.8%. That's just 62%. But this is not as bad as you probably think, because if we look at the samples, now most of these are just different variants of like one piece of adware. So if you miss one, you basically miss all of them. So effectively, the detection ratio would be much higher if we considered all of these variants of this adware as one. But anyway, I didn't really verify these samples, so these are probably just duplicates. If not duplicates, they're different malware, but different files, but they basically do the same thing or install the same adware. But anyway, I'll give Comodo like once again an average detection ratio, nothing extraordinary and nothing too bad. At first, you may think it's really bad, but when you look at these files, well, it's not that bad. If we just count all of these files as one file, it would end up being much higher, probably in the high 85s or something. So I'm not going to do that, but I'll just say that the signatures haven't really improved. And it's not bad at all, but as I said, it's nothing special. So now I'm going to turn on their antivirus again and see if maybe they catch anything with their cloud, which is slightly unlikely, I'd say, because Komodo's cloud is not that big of a part in terms of detection. It does kick in sometimes, but I haven't really seen it improve the detection ratio a lot. And I guess in the scan they do use their cloud. But anyway, we'll go ahead and run these files now. So let's see what happens. Now this is going to be fairly interesting. So now that these files are on the system and that they're no longer, on a removable drive or from the internet, I'm going to expect is that Comodo is not going to sandbox them, and they may be allowed to run just fine. That's the new policy. And there we go. So basically what's going to happen now is any file that I run, pretty much anything, is going to be let through as if Comodo zero-day components don't exist. It's going to be like that. Now, some of you may be really shocked and you might be really disappointed that Comodo has decided to do this, but when you think of it, this is not a real life scenario. This is just a test, and the reason I just drag these files in is to test zero-day components because for most products, that's the way it works. If the zero-day component's going to kick in, it doesn't matter where the file comes from, except a few which are heavily dependent on the internet, like Norton. But then again, they're defenseless against files that come from a removable drive. Now, with Comodo, if these files were on a removable drive, they would have been virtualized. If they were on the internet, they would have been virtualized. So pretty much any way that you could get these files onto the system has been taken care of. But you might say, well, there's still a risk. I mean, what if I disable Comodo and get some files and, let's say I just keep Comodo disabled half of time because, I think I really like the color red. I decide, let's go ahead and disable it. There you go. I really like this color red, so I keep it disabled most of the time. So what happens if I'm one of those people? Well, that's the thing that Comodo has done in this version. They're trusting you not to be stupid, and if you are stupid, you're going to suffer. There's no going back from this. If you decide to turn it off and you get infected somehow, or you get some files on your system, and then later on you run them. But then again, how realistic is this? I mean, this is not something that's going to happen ever. I can pretty much guess because you've got to get your files from somewhere. Right, I mean, unless it's a previously infected machine, if you're installing Comodo on a clean machine, this should not be an issue at all. So basically, that's the policy right now. If these files were on a removable drive, or if they were, just downloaded from the internet, they would be run virtually. Since these are on my current hard drive, and I turn Comodo off when I grab them from my host machine, it's going to run just fine. So, the final verdict is basically up to you. Now, I want to know your views. Do you like this policy? Do you think this really works? Because for me, this is absolutely fine. Because there's no other way someone can get a malware file. You can either get it from the internet, or you can get it from a removable drive, an optical disk, pretty much anything from outside the computer. You cannot there's no way that a malware is going to spawn inside your computer. This is not Minecraft. So basically, this security thing, this policy is fairly, malware proof. There's no way you're going to get infected if you use the product correctly. Now, if you do something stupid, you would get infected anyway. So I don't see how, not having this policy would have helped you. So, that's the frequent complaint that I hear with the recent version of Comodo, and I do agree that this does open some more windows for getting infected, but at the same time, this is going to reduce the false positives a lot, and especially you're not going to have any issues running files that are part of your system, which was something people used to complain about a lot in previous versions. So I'll let you guys decide. What do you think? Do you think this is a step forward or a step in the wrong direction? I'd like to hear your views in the comment section below. For me, this is absolutely fine. I like the new version of Comodo just like every other version, and I think it's a solid free antivirus product, although the detection rates could be better, and I have no issues with the policies, absolutely, but I still feel that the sandbox could be made a bit more intelligent. So that's my final verdict on this version of Comodo. I'm not going to give it like a really great rating, especially because of the not so great detection ratios, but as always, I really love this product, and it's one of my favorite free anti-malware solutions, and I have no problem recommending this to anyone right now because it does work as long as you don't do anything stupid. So this security flaw to me is not really a flaw because I mean, how do you get your malware? You have to get it from an external source, and in that case, you're protected. The only scenario where this product fails is in a test scenario like this, where I get the malware from somewhere else, and I basically decide to run it on this system. But if I would just change the scenario a little bit, let's say put these files on a removable drive and then run them, Comodo would do just fine, in which case it would be just like everything's going to run fully virtualized. It'll be just like the previous version with the sandbox set to fully virtualized. So I hope hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope I gave you some insight into the way the new version of Comodo works. If you like it, you can definitely go ahead and use Comodo. If you didn't like it that much, well, there are always other solutions as well. Alright, now here are a couple of things that I haven't mentioned yet. For example, let's go ahead and go to file ratings. Now here we usually have these settings, but now there's a new setting to detect potentially unwanted applications. Now this is disabled by default. So if you noticed, none of these malware files were caught when I ran them. But if I turn this on, boom, a lot of files are now going to be stopped because of this setting. There you go, potentially unwanted application stopped. So if you turn that on, it's going to catch a lot more stuff. Once again, caught. However, since this is part of the file rating system, this does not count in the scan. So if you scan, the PUA detection is not going to show up because it's part of the file rating system, which works in real time. Now, the other setting I'd like to talk about, okay, here's some adware now. Now, the other setting that I'd like to talk about is, well, it's basically in security, fire scope. Now, I did mention this, but if you want, you can basically turn this off, and now you can monitor applications outside the sandbox as well. And this does help, catch a lot more malware. If you're just a regular user, I don't know why they've not disabled this by default. Probably because Firescope may be having a few bugs, but for most users, I would even go far enough to say that you should just uncheck it and let Firescope, run and monitor files, every file that even is outside the sandbox. Now, the way this new version of Comodo works, they assume that your computer's clean, and whenever anything that comes from outside runs in the sandbox, so obviously there's no need to monitor applications that are not being sandboxed. But if you are paranoid about security, you can go ahead and uncheck it, and then it's going to basically check every application, which is neat, but you need to have the resources to run it. Considering Comodo is very light, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Well, that's basically it. I don't really see any major changes apart from those. Now, keep in mind that this version does use hardware virtualization, so running applications in Sandbox should be a lot easier, especially demanding applications. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. See you guys later in the next P Security Channel video. Stay informed, stay secure.